Welcome to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing Hereditary, the one of the biggest horror releases of the year so far. It's got a lot of people talking, Schnars. People are talking. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do tonight. Joining me, first off, the homeless professor at Bloody Good Horror, here to bring the fancy quotient up tonight. Please welcome John Shelton.
Oh, good evening.
Next up, from Indiana, please welcome Casey.
Hello!
Cool Doctor Strange shirt, Casey. That's pretty sweet.
Thank you. It's retro.
From Florida, and his wife's out of town, so watch out. Please welcome Mark to the show.
Hello. Ready to party.
Is that why he was on time to the show? Is that what you're trying to do?
That's why he's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't going to say anything, John. And last up tonight on the show, he is the business manager at bloodygoodhorror.com, coming to you from Manhattan, New York City. Hair is just looking virile as hell tonight. Please welcome John Schnars.
I'm going for the anti-Eric tonight.
We're all going to be...
Because you got a haircut.
If I may, John, your hair is everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know if you probably have never done this, Schnars, because you're bougie, but I sometimes will cut my own hair, and I was doing that over the weekend, I was just like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna give myself a little summer buzz cut.
God bless you. If Suzanne would allow me, I would probably do the same, but...
And then I realized, like, between the beard and the buzz cut, that I'm sort of look like I'm trying to do the Triple H thing, Mark.
I thought more Zach Galifianakis from The Hangover.
Okay. I just need, like, a skull helmet, Mark, to complete the whole, like, evil wizard Triple H
give
thing.
him the fantasy, Casey. Just let him have this one.
Yeah, like a weird, like, foam throne situation with spikes coming out.
And, like, 40 pounds of steroids. They sell
40 pounds.
They sell steroids by the pound, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, sure.
Could I have
like
70...
how many pounds do you want to put on, and then you just plunk your cash down and you're good.
Steroids seem fun. So we're here tonight to talk about Hereditary. Guys, are you excited?
The feel-good movie of the first half of 2018.
Holy balls!
Yeah.
What a movie! What a movie!
Laugh a minute.
I actually, for maybe the first time ever, in the history of the show, I got on my phone at one point during this movie, not because I was bored, but because I had to look away.
You just gotta take a break, man. You just gotta.
I was like, I need a moment. Let's Google puppy photos or something right now.
Oh Lord.
So that's where we are.
It's a movie.
Yeah. We got a bunch of stuff going on tonight. Schnars, there were some trailers ahead of this movie we wanted to talk about.
I mean, really, I think we were just going to list them because it seemed like we got a lot of stuff.
Yeah, a bunch of things I hadn't seen before and now thought looked cool, and now I don't remember any of it.
So, yeah, I mean, the ones that we kind of touched on, some of the stuff we've touched on previously, the Meg, real excited for the Meg. I just want to be on the record right now as pro Meg.
Well, it's funny because somebody wrote in a few weeks ago. Meg. Somebody wrote in a few weeks ago, was like, how excited are you for Meg? And we all kind of gave it a meh. And I think I had just forgot because I rewatched the trailer and I was like, oh no, this looks pretty great.
Do you realize that Meg is just one letter away from Meg?
Yeah.
Whoa. Yeah. The Little Stranger was that was the first time I'd heard or seen or even heard of that film.
Yeah.
But it looks really interesting. It's sort of like a historical drama / horror movie based on a best-selling novel, according to the trailer, I believe. But I don't. That was the first.
So it's starring this. I call him Space Hitler because that's what he plays in the Star Wars movies.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the guy's name? Redheaded
Domhnall Gleeson.
Now, didn't he just do like the Winnie the Pooh or the Peter the Rabbit movie or something like that?
He did the Peter. No, he did the Peter Rabbit movie.
Peter Rabbit. Okay, that's right.
What did he play? He wasn't the farmer. I mean,
he has a really sweet 1940s mustache in this trailer.
Yeah.
Very procedural. There's a lot of proceduralness about this movie.
Okay. No, it looked interesting. I
was looking up the book it was based on, and it's it's by Sarah Waters, who also wrote Fingersmith, which was
Pardon?
These are just words,
Excuse
John.
me?
Yeah, all of her books are named after Urban Dictionary moves.
I can say rather unequivocally that was not Joe's nickname in high school.
Oh God! But no, Fingersmith was made into The Handmaiden, which we did on Sophistical.
Yeah,
and it was a
excellent,
fantastic movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I keep seeing.
I'll put the intrigue column.
I keep getting like pre-roll commercials for The Handmaid's Tale, and it looks amazing, but it's just like, do I want to? It seems depressing. It seems like a depressing.
You're talking about a completely different thing than what John is referencing.
I thought he just referenced.
But I will say,
the author.
The Handmaid's Tale is about as feel good as Hereditary was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty similar.
Didn't you just mention the book?
No, Handmaiden is the movie.
Sorry, I got those two things confused. He was talking about
the Fingersmith's Tale.
Yeah.
Just. Yeah. So those what was the other one, John? You mentioned an Amityville movie that I had not heard of.
Amityville Dollhouse. No, because like I don't know if you guys have been to a draft house, but before they do the actual trailers, they have like 30 minutes of pre-roll where they just like it's just like cool videos from YouTube and like related trailers and all kinds of weird shit. And they showed a trailer for Amityville Dollhouse, which I've never seen, but
this is old, right? Good. This is a 90s thing.
Yeah.
So that was I've never seen that one. I have seen the one where it's like two old women who buy a haunted lamp at a garage sale, and then I think
this is before Haunted Lamp.
Okay.
This is Haunted Dollhouse.
Haunted Lamp.
Don't quote me on my Amityville later year.
I thought you were saying that was a new movie. I was completely lost in that whole.
I always
reference.
loved when I was a kid the second Amityville movie. The second and the third, I'm like pretty into. There's one where like there's one where a bunch of couples go and they like buy the house and they're gonna like refurb it, and they all go crazy and like murder, and like the one dude goes nuts and tries to murder everybody. That one's like I remember loving that one as a kid. I don't know why.
Yeah, what I love about I think it's the second one is it's a prequel to the first one, but even though the first one came out in the 70s, the sequel is a prequel, but it's clearly set in the 80s, and they're just. I just love.
They're just not trying.
Right, and I think it's like the younger kid in the family is the one who goes crazy, right? Like tries to.
Yeah, the son like kills everybody.
Yeah, they're pretty wild. They probably are terrible, but I have them on VHS. So
they're terrible, but fun.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, am I the only person that got the "Sorry to Bother You" trailer? I think Shelton. Have you seen it, or did you get it?
Oh no, I've this has been on my radar for a long time. It's
So what is it?
It's directed by Boots Riley, who's a rapper I'm a big fan of, and it looks like it's going to get a pretty big release. It's getting a lot of really good buzz.
So I was going to say I've seen the buzz. I didn't realize what you guys were referring to, but I think John, you posted something about it maybe in on Slack. That's maybe how I heard about it.
It looks really. I mean, it looks really good. I'll try to do my best to like get the overall vibe of it. It seems like sort of abstract and out there, like almost being John Malkovich.
That's what it's getting compared to a lot.
And so. It stars, I don't know how you pronounce it, Lakeith Stanfield? Sedan? He was in...
The guy from Atlanta.
The guy from Atlanta, and he was in Get Out also. And basically the basic premise of this movie is that he works at a call center, hates his job, whatever, until someone points out to him one day that utilizing his white voice is the secret to success. And it's like what happens after that. It's described as a science fiction comedy, where the sort of being John Malkovich thing happens is like seems like he's like transported into people's homes and lives, and he gets all this power. Like basically, channeling his white voice unlocks all of this power in his life. And it's a majority black cast, like Terry Crews, Donald Glover's in it, and. So there's this trailer. It looks awesome. It's over the top. And it was a Red Band trailer. It was the only Red Band trailer that was before this movie. And there was two older white ladies sitting in front of me who offered their like couple word review after every trailer that showed up. And they were like, ooh, I don't know about that, or ooh, too scary, or whatever. And this this trailer happens, and there's a brief pause, and one of the ladies goes, no.
That reminds
because I texted Eric about it when it was happening, and I thought they were gonna hate Hereditary, and I'll have some more stories from them to come. I just wanted to set the
Yeah,
table
really.
there.
Yeah.
Tear this up.
Really, my favorite one-word review of a trailer ever. They were just like, no.
Yeah, I was.
There's a lot
I
of
have to.
motherfuckers in the Red Band trailer, which I think may have been part of.
I have to
uh,
talk about the we'll get to it, but like the couple that sat next to me during Hereditary, it's really something to witness someone's day get ruined in real time. And it was incredible. They were very optimistic when they came in. Like they sat down and they were like, "Oh, these seats are perfect. You did a great." Like she was like complimenting her husband because it's
They
like,
were
you gotta
too excited.
because you gotta pick ahead of time. And what I've realized is like there's 3 or 4 different theater layouts, and now I go enough, I recognize them from the little like chart. So I'm like, okay, in this theater, I want to be all the way in the back because it's smaller or whatever, and they were right next to me. It's just like we'll get to it later, but it was fun. Not for her so much, but more for me.
I was in a full theater. I don't know. Depending on when you guys went, I like almost completely sold out.
I went
I'd say.
Sunday at 4:15, and it was mildly full for a Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there Friday night, so
Yeah,
it
that's
was
pretty crazy.
You know, prime time.
Before we move on, I just want to mention the first Purge because it's the first time I've seen this trailer.
Yeah.
It's like second or third. I got it.
It looks bad.
Yeah.
The last one was bad. It wasn't great.
I haven't seen. I think I've only ever seen the first one.
I feel like all of these movies have these moments. They have these sort of like inspired set pieces. Like there were these 2 girls in the last movie with these insane like neon costumes on in a car covered in Christmas lights, and they were like 16-year-old girls, and they just rolled up and robbed this convenience store with a shotgun, and it was like amazing. And then the rest of the movie, you know, it like never comes together though, you know.
Yeah, it's never lived up to the potential.
Oh, and they were bumping
of the
Party in the
premise.
USA, which was like by far the best part of the whole thing. They were bumping actually a fake version of it because I guess they couldn't get the real one for the movie.
I mean, I don't know. That seems ridiculous, but okay.
And then the episode was just me and Joe singing Party in the USA. Who was in this, John? Do you have the cast in front of you? Because there was like one of the lead actresses. I was like, wow, we were like.
Wait, are you talking Hereditary or are you
Purge.
talking First Purge?
Purge.
No, I do not have it in front of me.
thought
I know you did request that I pull it up.
Oh, it's
and,
Marissa Tomei.
Yes,
I
yeah,
didn't-
Marissa Tomei. Marissa Tomei, John, is an Oscar-winning actress.
Correct. Yes.
So
listen,
she, from what I saw, plays a politician or somebody who was all in on the idea of the purge. It looks like until it happens, and then it kind of like she realizes what she's done because this is obviously like the first one that goes down. So she's,
I think the story
yes,
is.
it
I
is
think
because
she's the
it's-
sociologist that comes up with it.
oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, and then like once she sees it in action, she's like, oh, actually, I never could have seen
This
this
is the
coming,
theory.
guys, but this is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Marissa Tomei will always be the greatest Seinfeld
Yes,
single
that's-
episode guest.
That's
you know,
exactly
so.
what I think of. That's hilarious.
Did you guys get Matthew McConaughey murder romance trailer
No.
too? I can't.
No.
You know.
What was
I
that
wish I
one?
could remember the name of the movie. Had like
You could probably figure this out.
yeah, to the internet. I mean, I don't know if it looked good or not. It was like
Dallas Buyers Club.
yeah,
No.
that's what it was called. And Anne Hathaway's in it too. It's like he's having an affair with Anne Hathaway, and she's like,
Oh, that sounds saucy. I can get
"Kill
into
my husband."
The Beach
Like,
Bum?
Yeah, it's called Captain Ron. John.
No, I'm doing it. It's a movie that he has coming out that's in post production.
I think I
Oh
did.
my
see
god, I
that
hope that's
part.
it.
That's got to be a satire or something on his other
Serenity.
movies, right?
Serenity?
Like that can't be a real title of a movie. That has to be something that's making fun of his old movies, right?
No, that is.
I feel like he's been
legit-
so conscious about like getting away from that whole
I
thing.
mean, he also has a credit for something called White Boy Rick, so I feel like maybe he's not being super choosy. Yeah, okay, so here's the synopsis. The mysterious past of a fishing boat captain comes back to haunt him when his ex-wife tracks him down with a desperate plea for help, ensnaring his life in a new reality that may not be all that it seems.
That sounds
So
interesting.
it sounds like Anne Hathaway's his ex-wife, and she's like, you need to take him, my, I guess maybe new husband or whatever, out on the boat and kill him. And basically, like, he keeps running into all these people that are like, I know what your plan is. Like, it's just this like weird.
Ugh.
So I don't know. Maybe it's like in his head, or I don't know. It looked kind of interesting.
I
but
very
like,
much like both of those actors, so
I mean, every
Listen.
time I see Matthew McConaughey, I just fucking laugh. Like I can take him seriously when I'm watching the movie, but if I'm watching like a trailer, I'm just like, I don't know. I get like just he's in self-parody mode almost. It seems like.
So, just quick update on the Beach Bum, which y'all were
Very-
making fun of.
Very important.
It is starring Matthew McConaughey, directed by Harmony Korine.
Oh boy.
What?
And
Ooh.
the one-line tagline:
What?
a rebellious stoner named Moondog lives by his own rules,
Holy
and Matthew
shit.
McConaughey plays Moondog. Like,
Ugh.
this movie's gonna be incredible.
When does
So
that
what
come
you're
out?
telling me is that 5 years from now, someone's gonna be like, "You need to watch this fucking movie. It's incredible."
Now-
and I'm gonna watch it.
Guys,
No, we're doing that on
Hold on,
Sophistical, like-
guys. The rest of the cast: Snoop Dogg,
Oh,
Okay.
Martin
Yeah.
Lawrence,
Oh,
Isla
yeah.
Fisher, Zac Efron, Jonah Hill. This is like a murderer's row. We are all over this
All right.
movie.
I'm back. I'm back.
You're back.
You lost me at Harmony Korine. You got me back at Snoop Dogg.
Snoop
I'm
Dogg's character's name is Lingerie.
Lingerie.
Now
Guys, oh, boy.
his name
Look at my shit.
his
You just
name
made all that up, and I'm still.
Put this on your radar.
now his name is Moondog. So what I want to know is this WWF canon, Mark?
Yes.
Moondog Matthew?
Yep.
That's one person in this group that understood that reference. So
Moondog Spot. There was a bunch of Moondogs.
Moondog Rex, that's the one I remember.
Moondog Rex.
Yeah. They were like
any
albino
event,
dudes.
Anywho,
Beach Bum.
That sounds amazing. Okay, really
Not
quick.
horror, but also
No,
amazing.
no Joe tonight, so no beer recommendation. Although from a quick glance, it looks like everyone is drinking whiskey on the show right now, except maybe Schnars.
I have a tea.
Oh,
have a
that's- yeah, me too.
I'm drinking a terrible blood orange beer.
I'm out of all my
I got
whiskey.
whiskey.
Really quickly before we get into it, because I've just like this has been eating away at me for the last 2 months. Can I get a yay or nay on the trailer for this movie about the friends who have played a 20-year game of tag? Because
Top
It
5
looks-
worst movie ever made.
I
I'd say.
kind of think it looks
Really, I was
funny.
gonna go with the fuck yay.
I kind of
I
think,
think
it
it
looks
could be.
yeah
it's got
because of the
potential.
like it looks funny, and I hate myself for thinking that. How's that?
No.
Yeah.
It
I
to
think
me, it
gonna be
feels
all right.
like that
It's got
Step Brothers vibe where you watch the trailer and you're like, that looks like fucking garbage, and then you see it and it's accidentally the funniest movie.
And then you
ever
see it, and it's the greatest comedy that's ever
What?
been
Yeah.
made.
The comedy stylings of Jeremy Renner. Come on.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, come on.
yes. The rest of the cast, though.
I'm gonna
looks
play this
Yeah,
back
fantastic.
for you in like 2 weeks, and you're all gonna be fucking embarrassed.
The
all right?
When does
common
it-
stylings of John Hamm is what gives me hope.
Here's another question, though. When does it come out? Because I'm on vacation next week, John. So
It
Should we,
comes out
should we
this
review
weekend.
it? Should we just really fuck with Joe's
Sure.
head and review it?
should I
Eric,
go?
this could be your Father's Day gift to yourself.
Should I go see
Tag.
it?
It is rated R, which is kind of interesting.
Should I go see it? Oh, I could also see
No.
Jurassic World.
It does have Hannibal
also
Buress
see
in
Upgrade.
it, who I really like. So
Oh, I could see Upgrade. You're right. Wait, which
Colleen
weekend?
and I are already planning on seeing it.
Oh,
so.
Jurassic World is until the 22nd, so I would have to wait. So, yeah. So anyway, there you go. Here we are.
Man, we
like
covered
half-
a lot of ground, and we haven't talked about Tweet with BGH yet.
Yep. Tweet with BGH. Join members of the new class on Sunday, June 24th, 8 p.m. They're going to be watching 2009 Sorority Row, which is currently available
Nice.
for rental on YouTube, Google Play, Vudu, and Amazon. And as always, there will be a drinking game released the Thursday before.
not a terrible movie. I actually
howdy.
No, it's
kind of
great.
enjoyed it.
I've seen it multiple. It's one of the few movies we've done for the show that I have watched multiple times since then.
I feel like it's in that like Happy Death Day category of going in.
Yeah.
You're like, this could go either way, and actually ended up being surprisingly good.
It's goofy.
Yep.
All right, guys, let's
Yeah.
do it. Let's take a quick break. Coming in
Ugh.
hot and talk about Hereditary. Just
This is it, Jennifer. Your big breaking TV. From the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
wrong bumper.
Your Q game. A
Screwed
little
that
strong or a little weak there, I should say.
Yeah.
You've been smoking the devil's lettuce there.
up. Little wacky tobacco. John Schnarr's big Duke news this week.
Is it about the wrestler?
Sure, that's the only Duke thing I've heard all week. So yeah,
Yeah, it's good times. Pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
Still on Mark before the show. I might get into wrestling again.
You mean
So-
Duke? They don't pronounce it Wrestler at Duke.
Wrestler.
John,
So-
I don't watch wrestling so much as I read columns about it every week that tell me
Gentleman
what happened.
grappler.
That's probably how I should get back into it, actually. Yeah, I think Brian posted that in Slack in our sports channel. It's a lightly used channel, I would say, in BGH Slack, but every once in a while he gets some interesting links. He lives down there in North Carolina and teed us up, or I should say, queued up this this Duke wrestler who's trying to make it in the WWE one day. He's got big dreams,
There
so
you
I'm
go.
pretty excited about it.
Well, he's had such a hard life. I'd love to see something come through for him.
I wanted to know if the WWE is going to call him Kurt Angel.
Why would they call him that?
Is that Kurt Angle and Chris Angel as one person?
Well,
Yeah,
they already
he-
have the wrestler Kurt Angle.
He-
Yeah.
He's an Olympic magician.
I'm not sure where Casey's going with this, but I'm going to allow it. So.
All right,
Kurt
John
Angle was
Schnars.
the Olympian wrestler, so they could have Kurt Angel.
Ah,
They already used Kurt Angle.
Is the kid's name
Think of a
Angel?
stretch.
I see where you're going.
Is the kid's
I don't
name
know.
Angel?
I would go with Kurt
I
Angle
don't know
too,
what his name is.
personally, but
What is happening? All right, John Schnars. Duke taught you words. Probably, if I'm guessing, words that you don't say out loud in public anymore. Just based on recent things I've read about it.
Stop it.
But some of the words you can't say out loud, you bring to us and you say them here. Right? Does that sound accurate?
Sometimes. Yeah,
So,
there
with
we
that
go.
said, please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, today's word, noctambulism.
What?
fuck
N-O-
right off.
Noctambulism, noctambulism.
I'm having an ambulism over here. That's amazing.
It's another word for sleepwalking.
Hmm.
So you might know the word somnambulism. That's another variety there. But yeah, noctambulism. It really just does mean sleepwalking. First recorded use 1855. It is of a Latin origin, as you may have guessed.
You're hitting all my
Um,
buttons here tonight, Charles. Keep going.
Yeah, noctambulism.
Don't stop.
Would you like me to talk about Hereditary?
Sure.
This film. Hereditary, as Eric mentioned, sort of, I would say this was highly anticipated in a
Yeah.
lot of ways.
Since the
It's,
first time I saw this trailer, I remember being like, whoa.
Yeah, this comes to us from A24, who have been behind things like The Witch. What
Witch.
did they do last year?
They
had
go,
another
did they
big
do
one.
Ghost
It comes
Story?
at night.
It Comes at Night. They did
It comes at night. Did they do Ghost Story?
They did Ghost Story. They did the Lobster, and they probably also did the other one of that dude's movies, Yorgos. What's his name?
Sure.
John probably remembers.
Yes.
That guy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So A24. So they're in. So in some ways, we've got Blumhouse as like kind of not the vanguard, but the mass market of horror, kind of pushing. I would say the not the boundaries, but definitely pushing horror in a certain direction. A24 is in some ways the counterweight, and so they've put out a bunch of really interesting films.
Here's what I respect
Her-
about A24. They're like, hey, we don't give a F about making money.
I mean,
And I don't
so
mean
that's
that in
really
a bad way. I just mean like they are
But they
just,
do.
they're finding
Yeah,
artists.
They incidentally make a
Right,
good
but they're
amount of
somehow, well, and along the way, pissing off so many mainstream moviegoers who like somnambulatory into their movies. And
No, I mean we should talk about it because like I do think the way that this film was marketed and all is actually pretty interesting. Not that it was necessarily deceptive, but I think there's definitely a setup here for in some ways a movie that's not exactly the movie that you end up getting.
I don't know though.
Um,
But I think you watched the
scariest
trailer
fucking
and it
movie you'll
it looks
ever
like a
see.
psychedelic art house horror film to me. But maybe that's just because like
yeah.
I know the cues that I'm seeing.
Yeah, I guess my point is it more does not hit the beats that you expect. In any event, we're getting into the review really quickly. Directed here by Ari Aster, first-time feature director, which is another thing that's super interesting about A24, right? And like to your point, they're taking risks in different ways than someone like Blumhouse is. The budget here ended up being around 10 million, which again is much bigger than a Blumhouse kind of film typically would get, and it allows this Ari Aster to do some really interesting stuff. I mean, it's funny because it's a small film in a lot of ways. The story, just really briefly, story of basically a family of four. Toni Collette plays Annie. Her husband's Gabriel Byrne. Steve They have an older son named Peter who's in high school, and then a daughter, Charlie, she's 13. I guess she's like in middle school, whatever. I guess sixth, seventh grade. And the film opens there at the funeral for Annie's mother. And really kind of right off the bat, you kind of open on her giving the eulogy for the mom. And the eulogy itself kind of tees up how kind of strained and non-traditional isn't necessarily fair. They were not on good terms when she passed. They had kind of recently tried to reconcile, and it seems like that may have helped a little bit, or done a little bit, but hadn't really kind of like closed the gap. So you have this family dealing with the loss of a grandmother, and particularly the mom seems to be under some strain from that. And yeah, I mean, that kind of tees up. I mean, it's hard to do justice to a film that kind of goes in some really wacky places. But
well, let's say this, because to really talk about the rest of the plot, you got to give a pretty big spoiler for the end of the first act. So I think, like, since this came up recently, especially, this is going to be a spoilery review. I would totally not recommend listening to this if you want to see this movie. And I think we would all pretty much recommend seeing this movie just kind of blanketly, like to check it out, right? Like, is that a fair thing to say for everybody?
Worth checking out.
So
turn off now.
I would turn off now because I really think this is something you want to go into, like, kind of sight unseen. So there's your warning. Now we're going
Great warning. A+
into spoilers.
So you have this family. In some ways, they're like a pretty normal family. The mom is an artist. She works in miniatures, so she builds these almost like dollhouses, but they're actually a little smaller, and they're very kind of ornate and real, real photorealistic even.
And they're like
dioramas,
but they're they're also sort of like vignettes from her life. So like after the mom's funeral, she's literally building the funeral home, like parlor with the casket in the hospice room. So like, I think when you think miniatures, you think dark, but you think like little cute things, but it's all very dark.
Yeah, I mean, if you were just to like pass them or walk past them and get a glance, you might be like, oh, yeah, like a dollhouse.
Oh, cool.
There's some
worst dollhouse ever.
Yeah, but so she does that. We don't even know really what the father does. He's some kind of like corporate person in an office.
He's apparently a therapist. This is like something that
really?
we've got some inside tracks on the full thing. Apparently he's a therapist, and that plays into like the longer 3-hour cut, whatever. Anyway,
all right.
Not the theatrical cut though.
Yeah. So, and then they've got these two kids, middle school and high school, and so they're like living in some ways a normal life, dealing with this the sort of like grief of this loss, and also kind of just dealing with like normal high school stuff. So Peter, the son, pretty early on in the film, decides he wants to go to a party, and the mom, in her grief and just kind of being a little out of it, is basically like fighting with him to take his younger sister, because the sister's a little wonky. Like, she hangs out in her tree house by herself. I don't know. I can't remember if she does anything else that's like super weird off the top, but she's definitely.
Well, really early on, we see the bird kills itself against the window, and we see her snip its head off and put it in her pocket. So that seemed a little weird.
Yeah. Okay. So she does wackier shit than I had remembered. There's also
really loves candy. She's very into candy.
They
She
tee
loves
up.
the chocolate.
I think it's in the first act that they tee up a sort of element of the supernatural here, where there's this light that moves like across and through rooms in a really interesting way, like a visually interesting way, where it's almost a ring of light that kind of passes through the room and then triangulates or kind of shrinks down or dilates onto a different object.
It's like the kind of thing that ghost hunters pretend they see.
Yes. Yeah. But cool. I mean,
they're like moving a magnifying glass across the room.
Right.
But in any event, so the son concedes and sort of like takes his sister to this party. He's there. He's really trying to like get with a girl in his class that he likes. He has some. What did you call it, Mark? The devil's lettuce?
Yeah.
Oh man, total weak move. So he's trying to get with this chick, and he's like,
he puffs
"Hey,
some
do you smoke by any chance? Because I got some killer weed." And she goes, Yeah, totally. And he gets all excited, and she pulls him into a side bedroom, and there's two other dudes there, and he's like, "Hey, he's got weed," and the guy's like, "Aw,"
Yeah. With
That's
fat
cool.
trombone.
which is the last time you will have any thought for the rest of the movie other than, "Oh my God, I want to kill myself."
Yeah, that was the last moment of levity until they were like, "Hey, fuck you for watching this movie."
Yes.
The movie's over. Go fuck yourself.
So while he is with the girl in the room, he kind of convinces his sister to basically go mingle. And by mingle, he means go eat this like chocolate cake because we've seen that she's got a little bit of a sweet tooth. And so she starts, nomming down this chocolate cake.
Because like at all high school parties, you remember in high school when you'd have these big keggers and you'd bake an entire chocolate cake?
I
Well, yeah,
expected
they, like,
it.
making food for people. They were like
Yeah.
chopping shit up. I was like, who are these high school?
I
know
kids?
expected
that
it
this
to
is,
be like a
not
weed,
normal,
like a
but
weed cake.
I thought they were making like a mushroom cake or something. Like I don't know, like if that's a thing.
So an
but,
email,
like,
an email mentioned, and
Goddamn kids are making a Molly cake.
a malt cake. And one of our emailers mentioned, and I totally missed this, like pretty good foreshadowing, but you could see the people chopping up nuts.
yeah.
I didn't even
was
like it.
pretty
Didn't even
blatant.
like
It
connect
was
with
like
me.
Final Destination, like remember this, because already they
Yeah.
had foreshadowed the nut allergy quite a bit.
The
Yeah.
shot was so fast though, I didn't like readily identify it as nuts until
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
like
the
walnuts.
knife was what I was keyed in on. But yeah.
So, long story
Let's
short,
get through
the
the scene
sister
because then we gotta
yeah,
we
the
gotta jump
sister
into it.
eats this cake, and it has a bunch of nuts in it. And I didn't mention, but she has a nut allergy, and it's real bad. And so she starts to go into anaphylactic shock, and to the point where her throat is closing up. She finds her brother, and basically, with her last syllable, is like, I'm gonna die or something.
Even at
along
this
those lines.
point, this scene is so brutal because like when she goes into him and says, "My throat is closing," like he has this moment, like the guilt
Mhm.
and like
And
the
he's just taking a
panic,
big bong rip, and
the panic, and then it cuts, and he's
Sweet
like,
bong rip.
he's running around the side of the house with her. He throws her in the car. He's driving. He's trying to get her to the hospital. And he's driving
She-
like 100 miles an hour, and she is literally like dying in the back seat.
Did we ever get a specific location for this? Because I was gonna guess like Montana or like Wyoming. Did they-
Utah.
somewhere in the northwest.
it's
Somewhere.
Utah?
Yeah.
Yeah. In any event, yeah. So they live in a place where you've got to drive a little while just to like get anywhere. And the house they live in is out kind of in the middle of the woods. And so yeah, to Eric's point, he's driving, she's in the back gasping, and I mean this was the most. It's hard to call it the most gripping scene because there's a lot of pretty gripping scenes in this film, but she is just gasping for air, and she goes to open the window because she literally can't breathe. Opens the window, sticks her head out the window at the same time that he sees something in the road, swerves, and she is essentially decapitated by a light post that he drives past in this scene. And
At this point in this movie, like it's just not. You don't know what kind of movie it is yet, and you're waiting
Yeah.
to see what kind of movie it is. And this is the point at which the movie declares itself, and what it is declaring is, "I'm gonna kick you in the nuts." Like it is.
Plus,
Yeah.
I have never in my life, and some of these people end up hating the movie, but like everybody was with it the whole way. I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever felt the air suck out of a theater like that. It was crazy.
well, hell, there's me and most of the people in my theater literally gasped out loud. Oh shit!
Oh yeah.
Because the way they advertise this movie, since we're talking spoilers here, the way they advertise this movie and they concentrate so much on Charlie in the trailers and everything that when this point of the movie happens fairly early on, it literally knocks the bottom out of this thing because you go in there thinking that after watching these trailers, this movie is going to be centered on Charlie somehow and that the weird stuff's going to happen around her, and it is totally not. And it just kind of blows all expectations out of the water.
Yeah,
at
that's
that
actually
point-
that's a really good point. That's
yeah, you
Well-
don't know what the hell's going to happen now.
And that was sort of what I was getting at with the way that this was marketed versus like the film that it actually becomes. And look, it's super intentional. We got into it a little bit over email, but in some ways, this movie is very much sort of about the grief, the like grieving process and like what that does to you psychologically, or at least that's one of the things it's about. And
it's brutal.
But the movie forces the audience to reckon with that in probably as visceral a way as you can possibly, force in the setting of a film, right? Because to Casey's point, everything you've seen about this movie positions Charlie as sort of like the main character or one of the main characters. You, in a lot of ways, you go into this movie expecting an evil child film.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
And it's not like she's dead in the first 30 minutes.
Right, it's not even close to that.
Yeah.
And like not just dead, but like brutally murdered. I mean, just one of the worst death scenes in a film.
And not just the death, but how he deals with it. The fact that like afterwards he drives home and just leaves the dead body and just goes to bed and
leaves the head on the side of the road because they cut back to that. That whole sequence. There's a good 5 minutes of this movie. Once that happens, and you'll literally go, "Oh shit!" out loud, and then they pause on him sitting behind that wheel, and you can see the tears welling up in his eyes and stuff. And then as they pan back, and you see him slowly start to pull away, and you're just sitting there going, "Oh no, don't do it!"
He just drove away. Yeah. Okay, we got to get into it here. John Shelton, what did you think of this movie?
Oh boy. So I don't know. I've got complicated thoughts in this movie. So I came into it I hadn't seen a trailer, didn't know anything about it. I just knew it was getting like the words instant classic was getting thrown around, super scary. I don't think it hit those levels. I didn't love it. But it's a very well-made movie. I think it's a really good debut movie for like a first-time director. Toni Collette, like the performance she gives is fucking incredible.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like wrenching stuff, but it's for me it was a really like intense family drama. I don't know if it's a great horror film though. All the horror stuff just kind of came at the end, just kind of seemed kind of.
I disagree.
Shoehorned in.
I think the tension. I think this movie's tense all the way through, like from the opening.
It is like definitely it like grips you by the fucking stomach, and it's super uncomfortable to watch. And it's almost like a relief when the supernatural stuff comes through, because then it's like, oh, okay, now I know, like, oh, there's going to be like, oh, there's like, oh, is it a ghost in the corner? No, it's not.
You have you have some sort of idea what that kind of movie is like.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Casey.
I'm with John. I've got complicated thoughts on this movie, and I've been thinking about it since I saw it on Sunday. And I think parts of this movie are really fantastic. Like I was just talking about with this scene with what happens to Charlie and everything. I think this director for first-time movies really put some pretty unexpected stuff out there. It's really cool. I think where this movie ended up, where it ended, was frankly, like John said, it was shoehorned in, and I felt it was kind of dumb by the time I walked out of the theater. There's an angle to this movie, and since we're going spoiler territory already, I'll throw it out there. This whole possession thing just feels like it's tacked on because it is all revealed to us in a couple big info dumps, and we're kind of expected to go with it. I think if they would have gone, I'm all with them totally changing the feel and direction of what your expectations with this movie, with what they did with Charlie. I think the stuff that they did with like a lot of the aspects of this family dealing with the mental illness and things like that with the grandma and Toni Collette, and how you work in her miniatures that she's working on with the disorders that her mom had and stuff like that was fantastic. It's really well done, and I think they could have made a really good horror movie out of that. But tacking on possession stuff at the end of it just felt out of place.
But you guys are blowing my mind right now. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is fucking wild. Like, that's really the only way that I can describe it. I think we bounced around a lot of sort of referential things when we were talking about it earlier. I think that, now I'm thinking about it, this is basically like a combination of a Wes Anderson film and a Lars von Trier film, like smashed together. It's like Rosemary's Baby and The Omen and fucking Napoleon Dynamite. It's weird as shit. It's
it
like
is weird as shit.
It has this very strange, I mean, it has an unsettling quality content wise, but also like this whole diorama thing. They have these crazy shots that look like dioramas, like the scene where a coffin's getting lowered down in the ground and it pans all the way down where you can see like the layers of earth.
Yeah, it's like the art direction.
I mean, the movie literally begins with looking at the diorama and then zooming in, and the diorama is the house, right? So that kind of like sets the stage. I don't think this movie is perfect by any stretch. I think that it's very long. And especially when it gets into the second hour, basically is, like Shelton said, this like really tense family, like emotional family drama. And I think, I can't remember if this is on the pre-show or on the actual show, but Eric was mentioning that like who's kind of looking away just to take a break. And I feel like they could have maybe tightened that up a bit. But overall, I thought this movie was just super interesting. Like, it's not perfect, but
it's fascinating.
I can't even remember the last time I've seen a movie like this, because it's not like something like The Witch that is like just full on The Witch. Sorry, I mispronounced it.
Yeah, come on, Mark.
It's Witch. But just like full on, The Witch is like full on brutal the entire time. It has the same tone. This is like kind of funny, kind of weird, kind of indie, but like also super bleak. It's really hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth seeing and worth talking about because it's just super interesting to me.
John Schnorrs.
Yeah, so I had like a really interesting experience with this too. So I went in with pretty high expectations. I was really pumped by the trailer. I was knocked on my ass like really hard. I think Mark hit on a lot of the same kind of ways that I felt like it has a really unique look and feel to it, which in and of itself makes it interesting. I think the acting's like really top notch. And I think Casey said, like, I've been thinking about this movie more than I've thought about literally any movie I've seen in the last 5 years.
I feel like it's one of those ones.
All the time.
I agree. I think it's one of those ones that really sticks with you.
And yeah, I mean, there's something to say for that in and of itself. So I was really surprised because to John's point, I think all of the like acclaim that this got ahead of time, and like, look, like that's marketing. Like that's what A24 is trying to do, and they did a great job of like getting this some like really rosy praise and like lots of great coverage. It's overblown. Like this isn't the best horror movie of the last 10 years, but like it's probably like of this year, it's like in the running for me for sure.
Running, yeah.
And I guess what I'm getting at is like I came out and then like I got on Slack because there had been like a pretty robust chat on Slack, and I was like pretty shocked at how much a lot of the people in our like Slack room, we have a spoiler Slack room for people who have seen the film.
See, I don't ever go in there.
Yeah, no, so I knew not to go in there because I hadn't seen the movie, but then I did, and I scrolled back, and like it was like mostly negative to the point where I was like, holy shit, like did I see a different movie? Like
there's a lot of people on Slack who really
with you goddamn millennials.
That blows my mind, and I'm actually glad I didn't see it because it would have made me angry.
But I think we are like the exception, like that whole, because this movie like people are losing their shit over it. Like I've seen like.
But here's the thing, like it's almost making me swing back toward the like defending it and like wanting to build it up camp, and I say that mainly because like look, like I think, is this movie like perfect to Mark's point? No, obviously not. It's for a first time filmmaker, as John said, like amazing effort. It's the script is definitely like, and John mentioned there was like a 3-hour cut, so like there's a lot here that there's a lot of ground he's trying to cover. There's a lot of things he's trying to do. It's probably a little loose around some of the edges. The thing for me with the way that this movie goes from, let's say, kind of like family drama to essentially like cult possession film, to me, that was so well earned because it's not just, it is foreshadowed, and it is actually like pretty well telegraphed when you go back through the film. So even,
I mean, literally from her opening, like what she's saying at her mom's funeral, she's foreshadowing all that stuff.
And some of it's really heavy-handed. Like you like, if anything, the criticism is like it's almost like too obvious at some points, but at sometimes it's actually like really smart, and like even like little random shit that like you mentioned, I think, Eric, the girl cutting off the bird's head. Like at the time, you're like, what the fuck is this girl doing? This is like the oddest thing. But there is a direct reference later in the film. That's like pretty, whether you want to call it like necessary, it's like something that happens in kind of like the wackier parts of this movie that is, that's referenced. And I think to go back, I'm actually really interested to go back and watch this a second time, because I do think there's a lot more to kind of pick up that he maybe like, he's not always getting credit for the amount of work that was done to kind of like really piece this thing together in an interesting way.
So I absolutely love this movie. I think the thing is, regardless of if you come out loving it or being down on it, it's definitely not something you're gonna forget anytime soon, because it is just so unique in a lot of ways. I think the acting is incredible, like everyone said, and everyone's singing Toni Collette's praise, who's like incredible in this movie. But I really want to make sure we talk about Gabriel Byrne, because this dude, like, as an Irish person who knows a lot about cramming his feelings down inside and then trying to hold them there, this performance that he gives to me is like so riveting, and like it's like he's trying to, so like Toni Collette has some mental health history. She's kind of a little erratic. She's like this artist type. Both of the kids are just kind of, he's trying to keep it on the rails, right? And some of these scenes where they're like, the wife, when she's in grief, like she's sleeping out in the treehouse where the kid used to sleep, and it's like he is looking at her and he wants to say something, but I can't even describe it. Like the amount of nonverbal acting that Gabriel Byrne is doing is fucking incredible to me. Like I thought he was riveting in this movie, and also just so real in a way that terrifies me. Like when you think of, and again, it's like one of these like things that being a parent makes me look at movies differently. But like when you think of the amount of ways that families can go wrong, like and go down this path before you know it, and then you've got this family.
Let's just hope it doesn't go down this particular
Holy
path.
crap! But like but you know what I'm saying? Like that stuff. I think the family drama stuff in this is just incredible, and like it's almost so brutal. It's hard to watch at
It's
times.
fucking,
Like,
it's too much.
it's really
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
I will actually kind of veer off from some people say that I actually did find this movie scary. I think this movie is unsettling, like from the beginning. There's this, it's very subtle early on. I think like there's this scene where she sees her mom after the funeral that like literally gave me like booty shivers. Like it was just like
There was some quaking. You got some quakes.
I wanna get your
and then
booty checked, bro.
I do agree that there's a lot going on, and there are maybe some ways where the threads don't all the way come together. There's a little section in the second act where it starts to get a little kind of rote ghost movie-ish. But to me, when it makes that turn in the third act, I think the third act of this movie is batshit crazy in the best way. I think it's like it leaves you with just some really iconic visuals that are hard to forget. There's this scene with Toni Collette floating that literally made me want to poop my pants. Like it was just like one of those weird things where the movement is so unnatural that it just made me feel very uncomfortable. And
I just want to point out that I casually make that clicking noise all the time because my son thinks it's amusing.
listen, the clicking
and I found
thing.
myself doing it throughout the day, and
The
just,
clicking
like,
thing was
spooking myself a little bit.
the clicking thing was a really brilliant like auditory like breadcrumb, because then they could go back to it throughout the movie, and it was such a distinct sound
Yeah.
that it
I
just
mean,
kind
it's
of
just it's. I mean, I would never say that this movie was like the scariest thing I've ever seen, but it was a really, in my opinion, like a really great sort of class in how to be scary without being like super in your face. Like that click is like, I don't want to say barely audible, but it's just
It's
this
subtle,
cue
yeah.
that hits you, and every time you're like, oh fuck, like it's,
Well,
you know
and
what
I
mean?
think, too,
it's
that-
not like jumping out of your chair because it's a loud noise. It's just like they've queued up that it's a reason for dread.
Here's
and
my
every time you hear it,
here's
you're
my
like,
thing
"Ugh."
too, that a movie like the thing with a movie like this is like when the drama's so good, and when your stomach is like in a wrench from the human stuff and just the atmosphere, it's easier to make me scared, because what you've already done is kind of put me on a wire's edge the whole time, even if it's about this like emotional stuff, so that when you then bring in the other stuff, like I'm vulnerable to it already. And I also want to say, just think that like it's being scared of a movie is highly subjective. This is something we've dealt with
Yeah,
throughout the
yeah.
history of the show. I would never say this scared me, I think it's going to scare you too, because even from person to person, I think it varies a lot on your mood that day, like how you've taken the rest of the movie, the theater, you know what I mean? Like it is what it is. And I know some people write in and be like, nothing ever scares me. What are you guys talking about? But I just like, and it's not everything. I think there's like some ghost movie stuff here that didn't do much for me, but there's like a handful of moments that really freaked me out. And I think like, and it all kind of leads up to this great, like really sublimely crazy, weird imagery in the third act. It kind of reminds me of the way I felt about The Witch in a lot of ways. It's a difficult movie. It's a movie you kind of have to actively try to stay with, because it wants you to, it's like it dares you to stop watching, because it's just like, hey, do you feel like the worst you could possibly feel yet? Because we're going to keep going.
Well, I mean, it's a really interesting comparison, right? And I don't want to be unfair to people that didn't like this, but to me, it sort of lives or dies by your willingness to just like let go of your expectations. And someone brought up, I can't remember who it was, because we were having this long conversation on Slack, and it was something about how like The Exorcist basically only holds up as like the scariest movie because everyone saw it when they were like younger. It was like the mindset they were in. Like The Exorcist isn't a perfect movie either, and I'm not comparing these two overall quality wise, obviously, but like it's just an interesting. I feel like maybe at the stage that we're at, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that like we're a little bit more willing than we have been historically to just kind of give ourselves to a movie because we're not doing like as many theater releases. We're not getting as much, we're just not like as like hardcore in it film critic whatever as we used to be. So when you see a movie like this that's just like
Speak for yourself.
yeah, right, that's just kind of like slapping you around and like doing weird shit, like I was just into it. I was like around, I was there for this movie, even though it's not perfect and I don't know that I would call it an instant classic, but I don't know. I think if you just kind of like let go of your expectations a little bit. And I didn't really have any expectations for this. I mean, I saw the marketing and thought like, okay, this is like a spooky kid movie. And then obviously, as we mentioned, that takes like a really hard turn. And at that point, if you just kind of let yourself go and just try and follow what it's putting out, I think it takes some really interesting turns. Whether or not they make any sense at all is like another issue, I guess. But as far as just like experiencing it, I don't know. I was just I was down for it, whatever it was, I guess.
So part of my problem is, for me, and I was dealing with a sinus infection when I went to see this on Sunday night and everything, so maybe I wasn't in the right mindset and everything, but I didn't feel like that the ending of where it went with the occult shit was actually earned. To me, it felt like there was a couple little hints throughout there, the necklace, the miniature with like the one that she was talking about, her mom insisted on feeding her daughter, and you realize looking at her model, it was because her mom was trying to breastfeed her, all this stuff. I see some of those symbols looking back, but at the same time, to me, everything feels all of the...
Did you pick up on the friend though? Like that to me was the part that where I could see where it was going like immediately because
well, we didn't even touch on Ann Dowd.
So she runs into this woman who has also lost somebody, and they meet at like a grief counselor group. But like immediately, the way they meet, I know it's intentional. Like she literally throws herself in front of her car, and she's like, "Hey, we should be friends. We should talk about grief and stuff." And she gives her phone number.
Do a seance.
And then
Read
Toni
these words.
Collette goes
Make
to
sure
her.
your family's there.
Toni Collette goes to her apartment. She looks down at her doormat. She's like, "Oh, I love your doormat. My mom had one just like that." And immediately, like, I already know her mom was in some weird cult because she basically said as much in the beginning. I know this woman is creepy and weird. And then, like, 2 scenes later, the woman's like, "Oh, you got to come here. We did a seance, and I could speak to my dead relative, and you got to do this too." And, like, I think that, I don't know if that was supposed to be subtle or not, but that stuff to me was like a hammer of just like, this woman is up to some spooky shit. She wants to get her into the occult. Obviously, like, I didn't know the stuff with the daughter. I didn't know why.
Those like really obvious hints, and then you didn't hear from her because this movie's 2 fucking hours long. So you didn't hear from her for 20 minutes, and you kind of forgot about it.
But then you even see like somebody slips the seance. Somebody
first goes to like the group meeting, the group therapy meeting. We get our first info dump there, and she talks about her mom and all the things that how she her brother killed himself because her mom was trying to put people in him and stuff like that. And then she runs into Ann Dowd, like it's kind of getting painted out pretty obvious there. And then we have the second info dump when she's going through her mom's boxes and she pulls out her photo album and finds the picture of Ann Dowd, realizes she knows her mom, and Toni Collette starts putting it together there.
I do think, listen, I just think to call them
based on that though, like
I think to call them info dumps though is not giving enough credit to the script and the way it's executed.
Well,
like this isn't like
that, like they are delivered like in any other script delivered by any other actor or actress. Like these are info dumps, but these are actually like Toni Collette monologues that to me didn't. Yeah. I like had the meta awareness that they were info dumps, but like in the moment, I'm like, this is good.
See, it didn't even.
That's where like most of the story lived. Like it was all exposition, and like why couldn't we see that? Like that's with she's talking about her brother and how he died. Like why can't that be like because for me, like this movie really it needed 2 things. It needed to lose about like 15 minutes. It's too long, and it needed more. All the scares are like backloaded. All the scary stuff happens at the very end. The first hour of this movie, you could easily just like come across on HBO and not even realize you're watching a horror movie. And I just felt like it needed some more set pieces. And so like show us like what happened to her brother. Show
I
us
will
like when
say,
she's
like,
sleepwalking and like covering her family.
All
and,
right.
as far as the info
Garrett's-
dumps go, and sorry, John, I need to shoehorn this in quick. Like there was the one where she stands up at the dinner table, and I told you guys that I would bring up my friends, my two elderly white ladies sitting in
I
front
was
of me.
curious
friends.
what their reaction. I wanted some
Well,
commentary.
So like towards the end, they were talking constantly because they had no fucking idea what to make of what was happening. But in the scene where like the son, which like again, in my mind, a positive of this movie, they're sitting at the table, they're quiet, and the son to Toni Collette is like, "Is there something you want to say?"
Oh,
And
that
she's like,
scene is-
Whatever, you're gonna be snarky, and she gets up and she just fucking like rips into it, like into everybody. Here's all this stuff. And this is an example of a scene that in any other movie, this is an info dump, and by all means it is, but the delivery and the content was just like
No, I'll give you that
Just-
scene.
really intense.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, this woman goes, one of these women goes, "So there." And I was like, that is, God damn it.
Oh, boy.
I want to get your number, and I want you two to come
I
to every
think
movie
I
with
think
me
like the
from
crowd
now on.
the crowd stuff is fascinating because like I whether or not that crowd left like happy or not, and certainly some people didn't, like I could sense that everybody was like with this movie. Like they may not have wanted to be, but it's not the kind of movie that you just like casually drift away from because it kind of
have
demands
seen
your
a lot of
attention.
people complaining about this movie getting ruined by bad crowds though.
Well, so that's
by
what I was
people
going to
laughing
say
at
was
the wrong
that
place or doing like the
it
tongue
wasn't
flick, like,
there
through the whole
wasn't a
movie.
ton, there wasn't a ton of it, but so the second act is where it gets a little wacky with all the seance stuff, and like there's just some like moments that are almost slapsticky a little bit, but like
Yeah.
there was some giggling, and I just feel like it's one of those movies where it is so weird and uncomfortable that some people it just makes them laugh. Like it reminded me of Casey laughing during Inside 10 years ago because it
Yeah.
but like it's just I didn't get mad because I had already heard of people on Slack talking about it, so I was sort of expecting it, and it wasn't the main like big kind of payoffs of the movie. It was more kind of in that second act. And I was right with them, like so uncomfortable that I'm like, what? I guess like I get it. I kind of understand why people are laughing.
Yeah, just to touch really quick on the Tony
But
Collette
crowds-
stuff, or I should, the exposition. I mean, I think it is 100% fair to call this movie a Tony Collette vehicle. And
Oh,
to,
yeah.
to Mark's point, like, and you know, John, I think this might hit on like the criticism of having it be too exposition driven from a narrative standpoint is like I get it. I think it's fair, but at the same time, like I think it's intentional. I think it's a choice that was made. They let Toni Collette, she probably has 3 or 4 monologues, like legit her talking for like a solid minute or delivering, you know, monologue for a minute. And that is so unusual in a movie. Like there are so few movies where you get a real true monologue anymore. And so I think the director just kind of, and I would argue rightly, made the decision like, hey, I've got this like really excellent actress. I'm just going to let her chew the shit out of the scenery.
Well, I think too,
and like turned her loose on a bunch of scenes.
The other thing that
Yeah.
I think makes those scenes really fascinating is that she is the rest of the movie. She's basically a quiet character, right? They're a family that like represses shit and pushes it down. But what's happening in this movie is kind of where this movie picks up. She is losing her ability to kind of valve it in. And so she's constantly kind of pushing in, and then it's immediately bursting out. And so you get like she goes to the grief counseling, it just bursts out of her. There's the dinner table scene, it bursts out of her, right? Whereas like Gabrielle Byrne's kind of keeping his shit together a little more. But so she's this weird kind of quiet interest, like almost antisocial character. So then you see her have these manic like bursts of anger and like and emotion, and I found those scenes all like pretty riveting.
Look, like the movie's about not just her. I mean, really, it's about it centers on her, but it's about the mom.
It's really about the
her
mom and the mom's kind of master plan.
Yeah, and it's executed through Toni Collette. Like she's like sort of the primary vehicle, and then it translates or transitions to the son later in the film. But yeah, I mean, and so there's a portion of this film where you kind of ask yourself like, is this just a movie about her like losing her mind the same way her mom did? And like maybe you could argue that it is, but like
I think there's a read of it that it's
Yeah.
about mental illness.
well, it's certainly
it's
it's about
Hereditary. It's like
sure. Well, sure, right, but like this is, I mean, I don't like it's not a criticism, but like the read is like to your point, it's hereditary, mental illness, but like at least in the narrative of the film, it's intentional. Like it's intentionally
But the funny
passed on.
the funny thing though is that it doesn't actually. I wonder if the hereditary is almost a double meaning, because the mental illness thing actually really doesn't come into play, and pretty early on, like I had maybe little moments where I thought maybe it was her, but we've seen enough as an audience where I feel like, I don't know, I was never thinking that the only thing where it comes in is it makes Gabriel Byrne like not believe her about the things that she's seeing.
Here's my take on this, and I think the read on this and how they sold like the first half of this movie, or at least the first act, is what threw me off and made the ending feel out of place for me. Because throughout the first of this movie, she's talking about how her mom suffered from DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, basically multiple personalities. And then we start seeing her throughout this whole first act, and she's sitting working on these miniatures. And then we learn that she's making these miniature dioramas off of moments of her life that actually happened to her, and she's kind of rebuilding memories. So if you start playing off of that with the idea of this mental illness being hereditary, and that there's probably some underlying fear of her that maybe that would something that she might pick up on or something like that, and that's what led her to build these dioramas so that she could hold on to these memories of the past. Because you can also, sometimes people, when they talk about DID, they mention it's like sometimes you're stumbling upon somebody else's memories, and that's where the multiple personalities and stuff come up from. So I was really brought in and sold on the first half of this movie of the whole mental illness factor of this movie, with they'd set up when she's talking about her mom, and then watching her build these dioramas and stuff, and then watching as she slowly broke down and how she reacted to the grief with her mother, and then the grief with Charlie, and then dealing with her son after Charlie and stuff like that. So I expected this to go a more psychological horror route, where we watch Toni Collette continue to spiral out of control, because like we've said, this was totally a Toni Collette vehicle, and she did a fantastic job with it, and she did so good. And I was perfectly prepared to sit and watch that play out the rest of the movie to see where that gone, even if she went ape shit and stabbed her whole family or something like that.
It's really fascinating, like how people can see this movie and sort of get different things from it, because to me, that's totally valid. To me, it seemed like a red herring from the beginning, so I almost like wasn't paying attention to it. It's just fascinating, like the kind of different. I don't know what that says, but it's.
So I think that's why how this ended up with the whole supernatural and possession angle just really felt out of place for me, and just felt kind of silly and tacked on. That's where I'm coming from.
There's that scene where Toni Collette stabs herself a bunch. That was pretty fucked up.
Yeah. That was pretty messed up, and the whole floating scene was pretty fucked up.
I think I think the visuals at the end of this movie are just like chef's kiss.
Yeah,
I'm into it.
Yeah, and like when I say that I'm not sure I like this movie, when I talked at the beginning of it, there's the whole first half. Gabriel, I think you're spot on about Gabriel Byrne, Eric. I think everybody's spot on about Toni Collette. There's some really fantastic shit going on in this movie. It's the ending that threw me off.
Have you ever seen In Treatment? I brought this up on the show before, but his performance, and it's funny, I didn't realize he was a psychiatrist, which actually that makes sense. It's all coming together, man.
I mean, Gabriel Byrne's just a sweet dude. Like he's in a ton of shit. He's always pretty awesome.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually have to wrap it up, you guys.
And it's funny because Cece had to bail obviously before the show. She's not feeling so good. Hopefully she'll feel better soon. But we didn't even get into all the like wacky kind of symbolism.
We didn't mention the guy's name.
I just wanted to point out that this is very spoilery, but I'm somewhat proud of myself for noticing the probably very obvious thing that everyone ends up decapitated, because specifically the hell demon needs to inhabit a male body, or a specific male body.
Right.
And I'm reasonably sure that he can't do that if they are decapitated. So I just wanted to point out that I noticed that as I was driving home. And I'm very proud of myself.
Yes.
I love
I feel
that
like there's
whole.
a lot of
I
details
just
like that in there that maybe get lost in the fact that this just makes you fucking hate everything, because it's.
I
so
really
sad.
loved and I wonder if it was built or if this was like a set they scouted, but that whole treehouse thing is just such a great visual thing they return to the whole movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the heater lamps.
Especially being right outside the window, so you could see the lamps on and stuff. Yeah, and then just the way it ends, just bananas ass crazy. All
Since
right.
we're at the end of the discussion and we're already talking spoilers and shit, how the hell did they get Grandma's body up in the attic with nobody knowing?
I mean, look,
weird.
like
The devil.
there's a lot of shit. Well, the whole thing was, did they get her? Didn't someone mention this on Slack actually? Apparently, there's like you can like hear someone walking around upstairs in an earlier part of the film, because
Huh.
we didn't even talk about it, but like that's like one of the first things that happens is right after the burial. Gabriel Byrne gets a phone call from the cemetery, and they're like, "Hey,
Yes.
just so you know, there was a desecration like at the cemetery."
Again, like to me, another really
never showed
obvious.
anything.
To me, another
Yeah.
really obvious thing though that there's like some kind of weird witchy Satan-y stuff going on. Like you don't
No,
you don't
I mean,
desecrate
those
a
are-
grave for fun, Schnorrs, is what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say.
those are the things that like come up throughout the movie that like are actually
By the way-
super
And I know that's
Ga-
why I mean I know we're wrapping up, but that's why I would kind of push against the notion of this sort of culty stuff being shoehorned in. It ramps up at the end, but they are dropping seeds like the entire time. I would
Yeah.
say.
I can see now that we've talked about it that there were some small things that were pretty obvious looking back on them that did kind of lead up to there, but still doesn't change my opinion because I got wrapped up in the psychological aspect.
Yes, it
of
does, Casey. God damn it. I want to give props to Gabriel Byrne for his reaction when he actually saw the dead body, which is kind of amazing. Like he's just like, oh my god, like he just like he's like, there's a fucking dead body upstairs. It's great. All right, guys, we really have to wrap now. Please, John Shelton, would you recommend this?
You know, like I didn't love this movie. It reminded me a lot of Mother. That's another movie that I didn't love. I didn't really love the experience of watching it, but I thought about it for days afterwards.
Hmm.
Same thing for this. And you know, even though it didn't do it for me, I think it's good for horror in general. And yeah, so you know, I'll give it a recommend. You got to see it.
Prestige horror, Casey.
One of those, yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to see this to be able to form your own opinion because it's a polarizing one.
John Schnars.
Yes.
Mark.
Yeah, I mean, if you've listened to this and you haven't seen it, whoops. But I mean, try to go in with no expectations and see how you feel about it because it's really interesting. And I just think that there's so many different ways that you can feel about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we really didn't get into the ending, by the way.
That's
so.
fine. That's fine. I really love this movie. I think it is suspenseful and scary. I think that the like human drama in this movie is like gut wrenching, and it's you can't you can't look away from it while it's going on. The lady
Hail
next to
Heyman.
me,
Except when
the
it's
lady
wrong.
next to me, 100% took her husband to see this movie because she likes Toni Collette. I know that because she said it after the movie, and she was like, "I don't understand. Her movies are usually so good." This woman
I
is
was not
probably.
expecting a part where she flossed her head off her shoulders. What happened?
This woman is 100% somewhere right now telling somebody how much she hated this movie. And like she was so mad. I've never seen anybody so viscerally mad after a movie.
I had like in my row, it was like I said, full theater. There was probably like 4 girls. I would guess they were like 15, and 2 of them walked out in the middle of the movie.
Well,
didn't come back.
it's a funny thing about Toni Collette. Like my wife loves Toni Collette, but from a bunch of movies that are not anything like this. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like I think that she has like a fan base that.
She's got some wonderful
but-
romantic comedy stuff from earlier on in her career.
But I think she's that kind of actress though that like has fans, like people that like, oh, I like to go see like when she's in a movie, I like to go see it. You know what I mean? But this is not. Don't do that. All right, guys, that's gonna do it. Let's take a quick break.
It's 2018. Watch a fucking trailer.
Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
Coming Sunday, April 8th.
She's dead. Wrapped in plastic.
11:30 a.m., February 24th. Entering the town of Twin Peaks.
The Los Angeles Times says Twin Peaks is certainly like nothing else on television.
W.C. Fields would say, I'd rather be here than Philadelphia.
The Washington Post calls it unprecedented. This you gotta see.
Bobby, did you kill Laura Palmer?
Sunday, April 8th. From David Lynch, Twin Peaks.
Hey, I'm Lee Majduke from See No Evil 2, and you're listening to Bloody Good Horror.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. My throat hurts, guys. There's a lot of talking. Barely talked about the movie.
It's a good thing for a podcast.
This is a long email, but it was kind of funny, and I'm going to read it. This is from Matt. First of all, I wanted to start off with the standard I love your podcast and thank you for the hours of entertainment messages. I also want to personally thank Eric for following me on Instagram. I don't know if I should reveal this, but before I was bullied off Twitter, long story, I once sent you guys a picture of Uncle Traveling Matt, Eric's arch nemesis. Eric did not react well. I think he said something in the area of fuck you, but it sounded good-natured, and I, to this day, am honored by the verbal assault. I also used to tweet about how much I love Christmas Evil, a film that I know Eric hates. In spite of this, I hope you will continue to follow me on Instagram. So I have this.
Fucking with Eric on the internet is a time-honored tradition. I wouldn't be too.
I'm not sure if he's this guy, but I have the image that somebody sent that said it's Uncle Traveling Matt, and it says I'm watching you, Eric, on it. I assume that's him, but that's up in the video right now. He says, anyway, I have this coworker that a lot of people have a hard time getting along with for whatever reason. She and I, however, have no major issues, and that is because when she first started working here, someone informed her that I'm a horror fan, and as she is one too, she started seeking me out to talk about upcoming releases and favorite movies. We rarely see eye to eye on films. I'll recommend like I Saw the Devil to her, and she did not enjoy it. She's always recommending weird straight to YouTube shit, but recently she started asking me 2 questions whenever I bring a movie up, 2 questions that kind of annoy me. 1, is there a dog in it? 2, does something bad happen to the dog? Like
That's
like what? Wait, okay, so it keeps
I was
going.
gonna say,
like last Friday, we were both on the elevator, and she said, real excited, you going to see Hereditary this weekend? And I said, I want to, but I might not have time. I have a 6-year-old daughter. You guys get it? And she says, well, tell me about it. I heard the dog dies. That's
Wait,
funny.
does the dog
There
die?
is a dog in this
Off
movie.
screen, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it is dead because at one point you just see it laying there, but you never.
Oh,
it's like
yeah,
not
yeah.
a thing.
No, I mean they definitely show the dead dog at some point in
Yeah.
the movie.
Now, I
Yeah.
don't know anything about Hereditary. I don't know if there's a dog in it or if it dies or if the dog is the one killing people or whatever, but it annoyed me as it usually does until I thought about it a little longer. I remember being deeply turned off by the school bus shoot-up scene when I watched Hobo with a Shotgun. A scene I'm not sure which would have bothered me as much before I, got a daughter. I mean, I'm certain that I wouldn't have reveled in it, wouldn't have watched the scene and repeat, but I don't know if I would have had such a visceral reaction to it before becoming a dad. Forgive me if you've answered this before. Are there any horror tropes you can't stomach anymore now that you're older or a parent or a pet owner or whatever? Any movies you refuse to
Loud noises make me poop.
Any movies you refuse to watch again or consider watching for the first time because they feature said tropes? I remember really enjoying Inside when I first watched it, but now I'm almost certain I'd hate it having gone through what one goes through having a kid. Thanks, guys. I absolutely love the show. Please review Christmas Evil as soon as possible. I kid. Unless, ? Matt. Christmas Evil is terrible, although
Christmas Evil rules.
it might be funny to subject everyone else to it. We talked a lot about this lately. I think that it is just like you get older, and I think that impulse to torture yourself with stuff, I think lessens.
Yeah, once you've like hit those extremes, who cares? You've seen Serbian film, like okay, great. Now I don't have to do that anymore.
I do find dog stuff to be tough. It's funny. I was watching VHS 2 recently because I saw it was streaming on Shudder. And the final thing is where the kids get abducted by the aliens, but for like a good portion of it, the camera's strapped to the dog's back. So like you're like hoping the dog gets away from the aliens. I don't know if you guys remember this. But
no, I don't remember.
I was
it.
really hoping...
Dog stuff does not bother me at all. BT dubs. I don't know.
Cat person.
On the drive home from the theater today, I saw a sticker. It was I can't remember the breed of dog, but it was like some sticker that just said the name of the breed of dog, and it was a bunch of those dogs in different colors, but the way that they were positioned made it look like a human centipede. And I was like, just on the way home, I was like, that's a bad sticker.
That's weird.
It's a really bad sticker.
It wasn't intentional, you don't think?
No. I mean, if it was some like weird subversive, like this looks like a normal pet owner sticker, but also human
The
centipede.
canine centipede.
Canine centipede, yeah. I'm kind of shocked. Like, I don't know. I definitely am very rarely in the mood to just watch something like straight up disturbing anymore, just for the sake of it. But I don't know if I was ever in that mood. So
No, I was. There was definitely a time, like beginning. You go back to like when the show first started. I was all about like martyrs, bring it on. But but whatever. I mean, it's not that I can't watch those movies now. I just have to like pump myself up for them. Like I have to really,
Yeah.
really get myself in the mood for it.
Yeah, I can see that. There's been a couple times in the past, especially like closer to when we first had our daughter and seeing some stuff that ended up gory and dealing with pregnancies and stuff that really kind of freaked me out and put me off of it. There was a trauma movie that had something to do with a pregnant lady that I turned off.
Yeah, I don't
early
think
on.
I don't think I could like I don't think to his point that I could deal with Inside again.
Yeah, but like Serbian films, the one I refuse to watch on here is just like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Especially where I was in lifetime being a Girl Scout leader and stuff. It's like I just can't have my name attached to that.
All right, moving along here. Kaylin, wanted to thank her. She sent an email. Kaylin's a patron, just about how good the sound design is, and the way that they kind of juxtapose these different similar sounds to each other. I'm not gonna read it because we just gotta move along, but I wanted to make sure she knew that we got it. Thank you, Caitlin. Adam the lawyer writes in, Dear BGH crew, last week we were talking about in the faculty episode, you asked what listeners were doing in 1998. Shelton, I'm coming to you after this because I want to know what you were doing then. I hope this does not affect my position as your counsel, but I was 6 and playing Ocarina of Time, Banjo-Kazooie, Crash Bandicoot, F-Zero X, and my friend's brother's copy of Resident Evil 2, which all came out that year. I have heard 1998 called like the best ever video game year.
Yeah, that's up there for
I
sure.
recently went back and beat Majora's Mask again. Are there any old games you revisit from your childhood, and do they hold up? Adam.
Eric has like at least a dozen answers to that question, I would guess.
Yeah.
I actually just played Majora's Mask for the first time like a year ago on 3DS because they have there's a re-release of that, and it's fabulous. But I was like 18 when that game came out, so I wouldn't call it a childhood.
At least once a year, I get in a groove where I start playing Heroes of Might and Magic again, which came out in like 1998. Heroes of Might and Magic 3. It's a really good top-down, turn-based strategy, fantasy kind of thing. Tons of fun. I know I always talk about this, but Symphony of the Night is one I go back to a lot. Castlevania.
I play Super Mario Brothers on almost every console I own.
Yeah, I feel like
at least once.
I feel like I turn on Super Mario World once a year. I play the first 3 levels, and I'm like, cool.
Yep.
I've actually been playing. I've probably played through twice, and I actually recently was playing through the Mario 64. The one that was like the original.
I have never played that, so I don't have like any nostalgia
I haven't either,
for it.
and it's like this really weird. It's like I've never seen Fight Club, and I've never played Mario 64.
I'm surprised though, Mark. You were the one.
Remember the 90s.
Mark, that was your generation. That N64 stuff. That was like by the time that came around, I was just
I
like,
had an N64, but it came with that fucking terrible Star Wars pod racing game. Like that was how people got Mario 64. Was that it like came?
Yeah,
with the
that's
system.
a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I got the shitty pod. I was like a late adopter, so I got the shitty pod racing game instead of Mario 64.
People love that game.
The pod racing game?
Yeah, people love that shit. Shelton, because it was the only good part of that movie, and I don't know, people think it's fun. Shelton, what were you doing in 1998?
1998 was the year I turned 21, so you can pretty much extrapolate from there.
All right, let's back it up. What were you doing in 1978?
1978, I was shit in a diaper.
So, in relation to the faculty, which one of those kid groups would you have fit into when you were in high school?
It's been a really long time since I've seen the faculty.
Well, just generally, what was your subgenre in high school?
Kind of the burnout punk rockers.
Okay.
That would have been, yeah.
Did you ever have Jinko jeans? I guess they would have been a little beyond your time.
No,
Yeah.
Jinkos. I kind of caught the early, like they really got ridiculous after I
was gonna say, did you ever have jeans that kind of looked like a skirt from a certain angle?
No,
Shelton was of the tasteful Jinko period.
Exactly. Yeah, back when they were cool.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. God. All right. Nathan, I'm skipping your email, but I'm going to read it next week. It's because it's interesting, but we don't have enough time. info@bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. We'll get to the rest of that next week. Mark, what do we got on Twitter?
Yo, we use 2 hashtags. One of them is BGH Classics. So if you are interested in listening to our back episodes, become a patron at patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. And if you hear something silly, tweet it to us with the hashtag BGH Classics. And depending on how drunk I may or may not be, I will slur my way through it at the end of the show. This first one's from JHar0. This is a quote from me. Let's see. Sorry. I scrolled up. This one's from me. From JHar0. Disemboweling a turtle's okay, but stay away from the wiener play. Episode 45. Top 5 disturbing moments. There's like literally only one film that could possibly be about.
An inadvertent rhyme.
Yeah, I'm a poet.
There you go.
Next one is from Mi Corazon Mi Amor. Has a quote from Eric. I'm an atheist love hater.
I had no idea what this was in reference to, but I guess there's 2 atheists in the movie that were like had a romance, and it was just, I guess I didn't like it. I asked her because I'm like,
this is episode 46, Quarantine, by the way.
yeah, I had no idea.
Edgy AF. Eric was an edgelord around
Yes.
episode 46, as we all were, I think.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
This is a good one. This is a good one and actually relevant for this week's show. This is JR0. I said people take time out of their busy days to write us emails and we never read them. And then Eric said, well, they should write them differently.
I retweeted this.
358 Hellions. What was Hellions about? I do not.
Is Hellions an Australian thing?
Yeah, I think so.
I,
Either that or like Scottish.
I retweeted this. This was such a good take that I retweeted it to agree with myself. You just muted yourself, Mark.
Sorry, I'm looking it up. Hellions. A teenager must survive a Halloween night from hell when malevolent trick-or-treaters come knocking at their door.
Oh, I do remember that movie now. Okay.
That was like sort of like weird and kind of trippy, right? And like the little kids were trying to kill her. Okay, now I remember. Sort of. Cool. Next one is from That Baseball Joe. Joe said, you speak Spanish, Mark? And I said, yeah, once I got over being a racist, apparently I learned it.
Good God.
These things.
I'm guessing Joe made some joke about me being racist because I said something stupid.
These things that need context don't really work as BGH classics.
I don't like this tweet that I just read.
Although, Mark, you did read it without like reading it, so.
Oh, I mean, I run Burgundy the show this every week. Everyone knows that. This is episode 175, Fright Night. In case you want to go back and please get that context and tell me what it is, because now I feel terrible. Next one, JR0. Eric says, as men, we're easily manipulated. I said, just take a hold of the dingus. Eric said, it's basically a joystick. And then I said, I wasn't going to go that far. Jesus Christ, Eric. And then Joe said, where yours ends, mine bends.
Jesus Christ.
This is episode 360, Knock Knock. And this wasn't just us talking about penises. That was actually a thing that happened.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Keanu
so
Reeves was resisting. And they grabbed a hold of the
so I 100
joystick.
Oh, okay. Free fucking pizza. I gotcha. I would have
free fucking pizza.
I would have thought that was in reference to that Guillermo del Toro movie where Jessica Chastain is giving her brother secret HJs in the secret room or whatever.
Crimson Peak.
Crimson Peak, yeah, because that whole thing is like she literally just grabs it and he's like, okay, whatever you want, I'll do it.
AKA the spooky bodice. Next one is from Skizbot. Eric says, Casey just watched all the After Dark movies in a row. He's icing his nuts right now. And I said his brain nuts.
That's how long we've been doing this show. That like we've been doing this show since they used to have After Dark movies in theaters.
Yeah, no shit. That was episode 72, Splinters. That was a long fucking time.
Do you remember that? Every year they released like 12 movies or some shit.
That would have been like the first year too, and they were trying to make it a big deal. Like a festival.
Yeah.
Another deep cut from Skizbot. John says he just goes happy go Jackie on some zombies. Eric laughing. What? Me. When we start printing catchphrase t-shirts, Schnars is getting a happy go Jackie t-shirt.
Dude, that is so fun. Like I laughed.
We could make that happen, right?
Happy go Jackie is a really great turn of phrase, Schnars.
Really good. Episode 92, Zombieland.
That's what Schnars does when his wife's out of town.
I feel like I had to have borrowed that from somewhere. I don't know. I can't imagine. I came up with that.
Nah, it just sounds like some nonsense you made up.
It's possible.
Wow, this is like a very specific throwback. So this is also from Skizbot. Casey, to the people upset by his NSFW BGH post. What the fuck, man? The post title was boobies. Listeners, I'll tell you now, If I post boobies in a title, it's gonna have boobs in it.
I wish I knew what this was in reference to.
Episode 21, Jack Brooks Monsters Player. I would Google it right now, but I've got tweet stuff to do.
I don't know, but I'm guessing I do remember writing a blog post about Hammer horror and all of the lovely women of Hammer and their boobs they used to put in those. I have a feeling I had to do with that.
I'm guessing that might be one of the posts our advertisers asked us to take down.
Are there actually?
Yeah.
Is there
Along
actually?
with a review of Run Bitch Run?
It's why we had to get rid of our advertisers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there actually nudity
Yeah.
in those Hammer movies?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I didn't realize.
lots of it.
I thought it was more just
Wait.
like the spooky bodice kind of situation.
I was gonna say
No.
the ones I've seen, I feel like didn't have nudity in them.
You
But
watch
No,
the
there's
wrong one.
there's some that
Apparently.
were just spooky bodice, but there's a lot with full blood. I mean, if you see like the Vampire Lovers with Ingrid Pitt, and they're running around topless for like half the movie. So
Hmm.
noted.
That
Yes.
post does not appear to exist anymore. BT Dubs just Googled it, so don't even try. All right, next one is from me, Corazon Miamor. I can imagine him getting laid. I'm imagining it right now. God, it looks awful. That is Joe on John.
Nice.
Episode 119, Survival of the Dead. Great. Next one, Library of Congress, episode 133, Resident Evil Afterlife. Everyone discusses their theater crowd's reaction to the mid-credit scene. Joe, my audience was noticeably angry, just swearing at the screen. I thought there was going to be a riot. It's a very Chicago story. Last one is from Dilly D. Williams. Hey, I like your Twitter handle, friend. Schnars, kids love that fucking Blues Clues. Episode 129, Candyman.
Oh,
we
man.
did. So we did do a show on Candyman. I couldn't remember that for some reason.
Yeah, we did.
I heard you were looking for Candyman, bitch. All right, cool.
It's true. I did hear
All right,
that.
Mark, let's rip these off. Come
All right,
on.
we also use the hashtag AskBGH. You got a question and you want to shoehorn it in at the point where we've all checked out of the show, tweet it with the hashtag AskBGH and we'll do our best to answer it. This first one is from ShineMaster9000. Okay, cool. I got tickets to watch Hereditary tonight. Didn't look at the trailers or have any idea what the movie's about. I decided to watch it based on hype alone. Do you guys have any positive stories of going to watch a movie on a whim like this?
That doesn't really exist in my world anymore.
I saw Deadpool on a whim and I thought it was funny.
Well, yeah, like on a whim, like
What
there's
does a whim
I
mean? Like
actually-
usually I see a trailer and I'm like, oh, that looks cool.
But like, there's a ton of movies that I watch on airplanes on a whim and have a great time with. It's like so I'd say yes.
Cool. Next one, Flora Doohan. I think that's your real name. I like your real name. That's interesting. I've talked to a lot of people about the movie and it seems really divisive. Like everyone I've talked to either thought it was a masterpiece or else they hated it. What's the most starkly divisive movie you remember doing on the show?
That's a good question that I don't have an answer to, but we've definitely done ones that like almost ended the show.
I always want to say Prom Night, but that's just kind of our go-to example.
No,
Everyone
but-
is yelling at each other for no reason.
I was gonna say Antichrist, maybe.
Antichrist,
remember-
like I think Mother was a pretty divisive movie when we reviewed it.
Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't on that episode, so I couldn't tell it.
Well, does it have to be divisive, like it divides us, or we talked about a movie that we know was divisive? You know. what I mean?
However you want to answer it, John.
Well, I'd still put Antichrist up there. It was a pretty divisive little film.
Blood boner. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably also say Human Centipede, the first one,
Sure.
because
You know what's funny though? I remember us all being like, you know what? Human Centipede was actually much better than we thought it was
And
going
like
to be.
hated ourselves for
Yeah.
having to admit it.
Yeah.
Also, to go back to the movies that we're not as interested in watching now, I feel like anything Lars von Trier does, I just could not give a fuck less about. Honestly, at this point, like I'm just like subjecting myself to it doesn't make me feel better as a film watcher. Just a thought.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Next one from Witchy Kitchen. Most unexpected movie death or most creative use of bugs.
Very
How was that movie
unexpected.
with Odette Usman, the cockroach glory hole, The Unborn?
What?
Yes.
yeah,
Cockroach
Uh,
Glory.
Good God.
I mean, Halloween 3, that's got to be up there for bugs.
Yeah, the Creep Show short.
Creep
with
Show.
Creep Show 2?
Yeah.
Question mark.
Creep Show.
Uh,
I don't
no,
think
it-
there's bugs in
there's
Creep
one.
Show too.
It's the first
I
one.
wouldn't necessarily. I don't think it qualifies necessarily as a bug, but I thought Famke's tentacle head was pretty great in the faculty, and out of nowhere.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
Word.
Bug, the movie.
There you
Seen
go.
Bug. There's this movie called Bug.
Yeah, I haven't
Pretty
seen
good?
it.
William
It's
Friedkin?
yeah, I was gonna say it's a play.
Ashley
It's
Judd
like
in a hotel room.
Yeah,
Lots of scratch.
it's based on a theater play
A theater
for
play.
the
Yes.
for the stage.
All right, Mark, what
All
else
right,
we
cool.
got?
We've got a couple more short ones. All right. Next one is from Gray himself. Do you think the cult was behind Charlie's nut allergy? Either in the film you see her eating what looks like peanut M&Ms while drawing and she was fine, but then at the party she had a reaction to nuts? Question mark. How did you know they were peanut
Yeah,
M&Ms?
that's like probably not.
I think a cult is.
Although
behind
to
all
that point, the
peanut
candy
allergies.
bar she was eating did suspiciously look like Snickers, and I did multiple times think if she has a peanut allergy, how's she eating a Snickers?
I thought it was like a Hershey's,
Could have been a Milky Way. You
Hershey-
can't tell a
like a-
Milky Way from a
like a
Snickers, Mark.
Hershey's
You gotta
rag.
start-
Fucking judge my knowledge of candy bars, John.
There's this great moment where Gabriel Byrne gets mad at her for eating candy, and then he just like gives up. He's like, "Is there nuts in it?" She's like, "No." He's like, "All right, whatever, dude. I don't give a fuck. I want to kill myself."
Interesting theory. Okay, next one from Pittman 1382. Did that really just happen? If you saw Hereditary, you know what I'm talking about. No, I don't.
It was like half the movie.
It all happened. We were there.
Yeah.
I think Did That Just Happen is like the name of the movie because
Mhm.
there's a lot of shit like that.
Did that just happen?
Next one, which we actually have already been kind of asked this question in another forum from Final Girl SG. Are your horror film squicks getting easier or worse with age? I'm unfazed by human suffering now. Yikes. But sad animals can't deal.
Well, no, but like the funny thing is they're reversing. It's like things that I really wouldn't have been bothered that much, like this family stuff, is like literally just tearing me up inside while I'm watching it. Like it's brutal.
No, I agree.
Right, peel someone's fingernails off. I don't give a shit. Show me a sad family. It just ruins my fucking
Oh
life.
God, what happened?
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I'm finding myself as of late, and it's not every time, and it's funny in contrast to the BGH Classic about my former blog post. But I find myself getting bored and quickly with like needless sex and boob scenes in horror flicks.
Yeah, I find myself questioning it at least, being like, is this necessary right now? And
I mean, it's
sometimes I'm
almost
like,
completely gone from the genre at this point too. So it seems like
you definitely
I
don't see
don't
it as
know unless
much.
unless we're just not watching those movies. I mean, maybe they exist, but
I found myself a few times now when they pop up, and just thinking, just fucking get on with it. Let's go get back to the story.
I'm not quite there yet, Casey. So maybe it's like I'm just
John's
8 or
just
9
always
years.
Well, I
old.
said
fucking
it's
horny, so I don't
it's
know.
not every time, but
oh man. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Never mind. Next one is from Final Girl SG. Also, anyone still hoarding physical horror media, or have you all gone digital? Still in love with discs, but admit they are less practical.
I mean, Eric has a well documented. And
It's right behind him.
It's right there.
yeah. Look
So
over there.
but I also like throw out DVD covers and I just keep them in sleeves in like a tote bin kind of thing. I don't know, the life I'm living, I can't just be carrying all shit around. But the VHS are the only things that have lasted because like those are the things, and it has nothing to do with even the physical movies. It's more just like pure nostalgia that I just can't let go of. So just like I will lug those boxes around forever, but
Yeah.
And when the world ends Wall-E style, you can like shine a flashlight through them and watch the movie while you're like turning the thing.
kind of where I'm at now is like I feel like you have your go-to movies, right? Like I know I want the original Halloween on Blu-ray and like maybe 20 or 30 other movies, and then I so I think you kind of should like if there's a movie that you can't, if you were told you couldn't watch it again for the rest of your life, you would like be really upset. You should probably just own that movie, and then the rest you just get on streaming, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of how I feel about records. It's like I'm only interested in owning hard copies of the things that I feel like I would miss if for whatever reason Spotify just disappeared one day.
Yep.
Okay. So quick, last one's from Robale. With the low Cinescore Hereditary got, who do you blame, marketing or audiences?
I don't blame the
Audiences.
audiences. This is not a mainstream horror film. It's just not, and I think it attracted a lot of looky-loos who were curious about it. And
Yeah.
So the weird thing to me though, this got like a pretty low cinema score, but like it also was the biggest A24 release ever. This was their largest ever opening. It did like 13 million. You know, I mean, this was like a huge quote unquote hit for them. So I don't
people
know.
saw it, but they didn't like it. But the cinema score, that's all about like how people felt about the ending. Like that's the
Yeah,
one thing
true.
that's consistent is like any movie that has a weird ending or an ambiguous ending always gets a
What
shit
is that
score.
even? Is that like exit polling or something?
Yeah, basically as you walk
yeah.
out, they ask you what you thought of the movie.
But see, I thought a lot of the cinema scoring.
I thought the ending was awesome. I fucking love the ending.
Yeah,
of the
me
movie.
too. It's super dark though. I thought cinema scoring actually came pre-release, like it's like done on preview audiences for the most part, because it's usually used
I
as
think
like
it's opening weekend.
Is,
it's
okay.
general audience.
I gotta say, like,
I mean-
I didn't think that the kid was like an amazing actor, but I thought that final moment where he's like just looking, like just staring, and like I thought he sold that really well. That was pretty awesome.
I mean, and like this might not be all that, you know, impactful one way or the other, but like it's at it was number 4 for the weekend. It's at number 4 on Tuesday. You know, like it's not like people are just bailing on this thing based on word of mouth. It's kind of holding its ground right now. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, second weekend will be pretty telling.
But
it does,
if it made
pretty well.
13 million its first weekend, it's like, and it was shot for 10. Well, cool.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's like A24. This is like a huge hit. Like they're receiving like a lot of, you know, acclaim or back patting certainly for the way this was rolled out. So
I would just say in general, like, don't listen to other people's opinions of movies. And I know that's kind of funny coming from this podcast, but
thus ends the podcast.
I mean,
forever.
I would say like I don't know. You know what I mean? Our opinion's amazing because we talk about it and we flesh it out. But like,
meanwhile, go see Tag, guys. Just go see.
I'm just saying, dude, what's
Tag,
awesome?
Instant classic. Hold me to it. I can't wait to hear about your experience with it.
There you go.
John, I know you questioned Jeremy Renner's community chops, but have you ever seen a little movie called National Lampoon Senior Trip?
Oh fuck yeah!
God damn, that is
that's great stuff.
Just saying.
Wow, that's a fucking callback.
Yeah.
I think you should play us out. That was great. No?
It's playing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's real low. Now I hear it. To play us out?
How's that?
To end the
play
show?
us out. What does that mean?
What the fuck does that mean? To play us out?
I'll write it and I'll do it. All right,
Fuck it.
guys. It's gonna do it. Next week, They Remain, as voted on by patrons. Finally, we're gonna make it happen. And the week after that, I think we're gonna be doing that Jurassic movie there. So there you go.
betcha.
With Hunky McPex.
If you would like to watch this show live streamed every week when we record, get access to classics and voting on new upcoming episodes, check out patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. That's going to do it for this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you soon.
See you.
Bye.
Mark?
I said adios.
Oh, bye-bye.